that kind of teaching to give and expect something from God because you gave is not just evil, it is very wrong, totally wrong. And we need to understand the importance of a true application or interpretation of the scriptures. We must understand the true application and interpretation of the scriptures. For me, as I grew up in ministry and I began to preach the gospel, and of course I began to see the so-called prosperity preaching, that's all that was available to me, that's all I knew. And I learned from the best of the prosperity preachers worldwide. I'm talking about at a global level. I learned from the best. And of course, every time they said something, they showed a scripture. And because for me, it was in the Bible, I thought that's all that was needed. Since I can see it in the Bible, that's all that was needed. So I took it from them and I ran with it, preached it with all my strength, with all my life, and with all my heart. And I'm sure God saw the sincerity of my heart, and He saw that I was doing this honestly. I was not trying to be dubious. And then in His mercy, helped me make the U-turn that I made and began to look at the scriptures in the light of Christ. And I saw so many things that were very wrong with that shade of the gospel. And most of those who preach another gospel, like I said, quote from the scriptures, it looks like the gospel, it sounds like the gospel, but it is not the gospel. You have to closely look at it well from the rightly divided scriptures to be able to know that that is not the gospel. Now remember, a scripture can never mean today what it never meant when it was first written. In other words, you can never arrive at the truth when you twist the scriptures. No matter how many results you get from it, no matter how many results you get from a twisted scripture, you can never arrive at the truth. The truth of the matter is, it doesn't become true because you have a result. It doesn't become true because you have a result. Because when I was preaching the prosperity gospel, we gave and we saw some things that were results, and even people who gave had testimonies and gave. That is also another thing that made it look like real, because of the testimonies people were having. I just gave and this is what God has done. But then when you look at it, everybody that gave didn't get a testimony. So is God partial? Everybody that gave didn't get. Sometimes out of a whole giving, only 4 or 5 people have the testimony. What about the rest? Is God partial? Is God favoring some people and disfavoring some people? What could be the problem? What could be the issue? Those kind of questions were lingering on my mind somewhere, but I didn't have answers to them. And of course, when I was growing up in the ministry, when we asked our senior pastors and people we look up to some questions, they would just give us that scripture. The secret things belong to God, and the ones that are revealed them for us and our children. So there are things you will never know. There's no point asking. And then we kept wondering, what kind of God is this, who just keeps you wondering and not ever giving you answers to your questions? Anyway, so all that was going on in my mind. And then as I came into the truth of the gospel, I discovered that the truth of the matter is, it doesn't become true because you have a result. People go to native doctors and native doctors give them things, and with those things they still get result. That doesn't validate native doctorship. Is that true? People go to soothsayers, diviners, necromancers, and they give them some formulas, and when they apply it, it works. That doesn't validate it. So the fact that there are some results doesn't validate that operation at all. Listen carefully. An experience does not validate a lie. If it's a lie, it's a lie, irrespective of the experience that accompanies it. So we want to look at, why do we give? Why do we give? And I want to be very clear, because a lot of preachers don't like when I start talking about these kind of things, because they feel like I want to spoil market, I want to really rip off things. But we must remember that I'm also a pastor. I'm a preacher, I'm a pastor, all right? And so if anybody should say the kind of things that will encourage people to give no matter what, I should be the one, because I am also a pastor. It's not like I am no more a pastor, I'm doing something else and I want to spoil pastor's market. I'm also still a pastor, and I'm not teaching this somewhere. I'm teaching this to members of my church who are supposed to support my ministry. So it must be the truth for me against all odds to bring it to your notice. Otherwise, I could just do what everybody is doing, collect the monies I need to collect, but it has no blessing. There is no blessing in falsehood. There is no blessing in lies. The blessing is only in the truth. So please pay attention. This is very important. We want to look at, why do we give? Because the reason why we teach is so that you don't give out of assumption. Because to God, your motives are very important. Where God is concerned, your motives are very important.